Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Attack ads can't change the truth. Joe Garcia is doing what's right for Florida. House Majority PAC's responsible for the content of this ad.
That's right. The Democrats are now running ads against themselves. But this is all Democratic Party strategy being tested in Florida. You can guarantee it. Because Obama himself is now saying, hey, I know how to fix Obamacare, make me a dictator. And he's changed scores of provisions of it that is completely illegal to do. Completely outside of law. So they create the train wreck and then offer the solution. And finally, mainline, even Democrat-controlled media is admitting that Obamacare was designed to fail and that the website doesn't work because they don't want you to know what a screw job it is. They want to make it about, oh, we had a mess up, we had a problem. I mean, I've learned their tricks, folks. They've only got about 10 of them. And the Republicans play the same games, but they're just the loyal opposition, the supposed opposition to the takeover. That's the Republican leadership's job. But they're bought and paid for by the very same offshore interest, the robber barons. And so, of course, you keep getting the same outcomes, though you get different rhetoric. It's all about tricking people, but it's not going to work forever. If my voice sounds like it's out of it, I went shooting 50 cals, did a lot of shooting Sunday. And I was with Weldon and some friends, and he said, Alex, you know, you're not supposed to breathe. You hold your breath when you shoot, and then you breathe in right when you pull the trigger. I can see you blowing smoke out like you're smoking a cigarette. And by the time I was driving home, I had a sore throat from it. I was like coughing some blood up this morning. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a big irritant and a little bit of stuff going on in my bronchioles. And it should get better very, very quickly. But I'm not trying to sound like Batman. Bruce Wayne. It actually sound like. But I do have some guests coming on the broadcast today. We have Paul Craig Roberts on what's happening with the economy and QE Unlimited being somewhat slowed down. And always interesting, Gerald Salente will be popping in, and I promise, that means the crew has to make me do this if I forget and go into perseveration. Take a lot of your phone calls today. That way I can also save my voice while trying to concisely get to some of the news. And believe me, there is a lot of it today. So I'm going to go ahead and give the phone number out for first-time callers right now. And if you'd like to comment on anything before I even give you any news, I just would like to hear from you. But beware. I'm going to try it. I mean, a little bit better over the years by increments, fractionally, by actually trying to go to your calls, move to the next person, at least in the first few rounds. And other people sit there on purgatory hold, but trapped in purgatory, awaiting the hour of reprisal. Your time slips away. So the point is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And this voice literally sounds like someone trying to act like the voice of God, the NFL announcer. President Camacho. People got stupider and stupider over the next 300 years until the average IQ was 71. Genius was considered to be 80. President Camacho had the highest IQ in the world at 85 points. Mike Ditka, legendary. We'll be back with HBO Sports. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man, again, I love guns, ladies and gentlemen, and I usually am under better discipline when I'm out shooting with Shane Steiner and folks, 50 cals. And, you know, you do not breathe when you pull the trigger on those because it's basically light artillery. And it's just incredible, nauseous smoke that comes back, burns your eyes, you name it, especially if the wind's blowing in your face. And I basically unintentionally huffed about 100 rounds of 50 cal Sunday. And I am going through the aftermath of it right now. I stopped about 10 into it. I was going to the second clip, and Weldon, because we had double 50s going, and he was like, Alex, I just saw you exhale smoke. And then I was there with Mike Judge. He was shooting too, and we're like, no, Mike, remember not to breathe. And then I looked at him, and he exhaled. I need to give him a call, see how he's doing. But it's some new ammo, too, because I know I've huffed it before and hadn't done this to me. But I don't want to turn the entire broadcast into a discussion of that. I'm just letting you know up front what's going on. Man, I tell you, it's just insane. And I'm never able to just read the headlines. But I'm going to do it today, right now. They took the cough button out of here. So they put the new one in. It had a malfunction last week. So I guess you're going to have to hear me cough today. I probably should have thrown in the towel and taken off. But I just love doing the radio broadcast, so I'm going to try it here. We're going to try it. We're going to open the phones up for whatever issue you want to discuss, but I'm just going to kind of let you have your comment. You probably don't want to call in with questions. Paul Craig Roberts is going to love it because I'll probably shut up for the first time in my life, and Gerald Salente is coming up as well today. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, where to start? Let me just in the interest of news, the reason I can never get to the news, I'm trying to figure out what's most important. And literally, I'm like a dog in a butcher shop and with just all the important news, and I don't know which giant piece of meat to sink my fangs into first. You know, it's almost like a deer in the headlights mode, and I think that's their intention. But right now, let's just give you the headlines. Survey, U.S. press freedom plunges under Obama to 46 in the world after Romania. Gotta love that. That's out of the Washington Times. This is out of the Times of Israel. Iran, we're ready for decisive battle with Israel, U.S. And again, folks, I've been against attacking Iran offensively. I don't want World War III. But now I saw people criticizing me on InfoWars in the comments and on the YouTubes from a few days ago when they were showing simulated videos of blowing up Tel Aviv and U.S. aircraft carriers preemptively. I mean, that's really asking for it. And so I'm saying, why are they doing that? Because their government wants to stay in power and needs war rhetoric because they're very unpopular. And our governments want the war rhetoric to stay in power. The Likudniks, the military-industrial complex over here. And it's just some people are not sophisticated enough to get, I'm on the side of anti-World War III. I'm on the side of prospering, live long and prosper. I'm on the side of building a civilization towards the stars, not constantly having a mindless war economy. But that doesn't mean I like the peaceniks that go, oh, be peaceful. Teach your little boys how to wear dresses and to have basket weaving, and no one can have a toy gun. No, I'm for individuals to be actually primitive and warlike, because an actual primitive is more dialed in and smarter. Statistics show this can be taken and made. You could take somebody out of the jungle, folks, and give them top-level training, and they end up being incredible people. And the globalists had recognized this by the 1850s, the eugenicists. Francis Galton wrote about it, the father of eugenics, that the elite need to be like wild men, but with a facade of grace and genteel affect. And I'm telling you, to counter them, we need to be barbaric in our heart with love and strong against the usurpers, because we're being usurped at every level by social engineers playing games with us and getting us to stand down and not have a survival instinct. See, I said I would read all the headlines, and I went into Iran and started ranting about that. CJ, this is a direct order, because I don't have a producer-wise, and you guys book guests, make recommendations, do a great job. But most talk show hosts would have a consultant there just to keep them in line. Even if the talk show host knows more than the consultant, it's good to have somebody take them back, you know, to basic goals to cover news. So I want you to stop me with the mic on. Just turn it on. Whenever I start going off the reservation right now, you are to say, no, or hit a buzzer. You need to put up, because we're going to do it. Let me stop right there. Let me just read this. Survey, U.S. press freedom plunges under Obama to 46th in world after Romania. Iran, we're ready for decisive battle with Israel, U.S. Chief of Staff warns Tehran's enemies and regional states against military action, calling American threats political bluff. And last week, on their official Farsi news agency, I went and looked it up. It wasn't Israeli propaganda. The head of their military said, we got sleeper cells in America. It's just really asking for it. Really asking for it. I mean, and people are like, what, you're suddenly pro-war? No, you don't threaten to attack my country. And again, they want to keep the fight going now that Obama's done this peace deal with them. There's some weird stuff going on. I'm even having trouble figuring it out. Oh, see, you're supposed to shut me up, CJ.
I would, but I agree with you.
No, I got to go back into this later. I just got to get these headlines. Here it is. Feds climate change website hacked by online drug seller. Holder urges 11 states to restore the voting rights of former felons. Yeah, they know who their voters are. Conservative group calls for Boner's head. The Speaker of the House, John Boner. I mean, John, well, it is pronounced Boner. He tells us to say Boehner. I mean, be proud of your name, bro. Boner. I mean, Obama has Boner in his pocket.
Stick to the news.
Stick to the news. All right, there you go. This is not we're not doing this. Is not a stick, folks. I cannot shut up. It's literally neurotic. Conservative group calls for Boehner's head. I mean, this is just, each one of these is a whole stack. I haven't even gotten to that. Okay, this is just kind of the mindless stack right here. I'm not doing this even in top story order. Panicked shoppers fight over food aid snowpocalypse as global warming super storm hits. Lake Superior will freeze over this winter, NOAA says. And it just continues, ladies and gentlemen, with the fact that there is just an absolute megastorm after megastorm continuing to hit as the sun cools off. It's putting off a lot of X-flares and things, but it's not putting off a lot of radiant heat on average. And that's a cycle, and the sun does affect the weather. I know that's a conspiracy theory for some, but I assure you we'd be absolute zero without it. Winter storm, PAX update. South sees beginnings of crippling ice storm, heavy snowfall to the north. Ice experts predict Lake Superior will completely freeze over this winter. Snow rage pits storm-weary residents against plow drivers just trying to do their jobs. Yeah, the idiots out there don't like the snow plows clearing the roads for them. They think they should get out of their way. I just got to love the public. It's the instant gratification society. Give it to me now. Give it to me. Give it to me. Don't have a fire truck block half a lane if a car's blowing up on fire. You know, just whatever. Atlanta area braces for ice storm. 4 die in Texas. Power grids are going out, having problems because they've shut down our power plants. So there you go. Historic ice storm, and just more of them just keep slamming into them. You wonder why old houses from like 60, 70 years ago all have, some of them even have fireplaces in the bathroom. And do you know why that is? Because we go through cycles, ladies and gentlemen, and it doesn't have jack diddly squat to do with coal-powered plants. It has to do with the sun, that big old ball up there in the sky that burns your skin for however many millions of miles. How many millions of miles is it? Some ridiculous amount. Burns your skin. The reason I say that is the UN, as you know, voted 5 years ago, right before the Copenhagen summit, that the sun does not affect climate. Because scientists were saying, look, your models are all off. It's the sun. They said, no, it's not. They said, no, that's why the ice caps are melting on Mars. And then, of course, they're growing again because the sun's cooled off. But side issue, 93 million miles, and it'll burn your butt in an hour now on a summer day. 6 killed in avalanches across western United States, but it doesn't affect the climate. Moon doesn't affect it either. Okay, I'm sorry. We're going to have to stop right there. I'm going to get really, really serious when we come back and get into the really big news that I haven't even gotten into yet. The stock market, scary 1929 market chart gains traction. We're going to get into a House report on Benghazi attack, faults White House for security lapses. And we've got a bunch of news that's up on Drudge we got to carry. We got to cover, getting with the guns here. My voice is a little bit better now. It's where my voice is shot if I just keep talking and actually gets better. It's weird. At least by the second hour, and then it gets worse in the third hour. Your calls are coming up in the next segment. Tony, Jonathan, Adam, Rich, Kim, and others. Toll-free number to join us when you hear a caller hang up is 800-259-9231 on any of the issues I've raised. If you go up to drudgereport.com, you can see a whole list of the snow apocalypse news. We'll put that up on screen for TV viewers. Radio listeners can just go right over there. And you can see all the different historic things that are happening right now. And the big issue to all of this is that people are always unprepared. Historic ice storm unloads and unfolds in the south. Georgia warned it's catastrophic. Seen from space, NWS travel is impossible. Amtrak suspends. Ice from Texas to North Carolina. We've had ice like 3 weeks in a row here. Roads deserted. Panic. Shoppers fight over food. That's an Infowars.com article with all the crazy videos from all over the South. Nor'easter could be biggest of season. Snow rage affects locals all over the country. Man puts gun to plow driver's head. Unbelievable. Psychiatrist says there's a tremendous amount of seasonal affect disorder. Yeah, people not getting enough light in their eyes has been proven to cause depression and not getting outside, cabin fever, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different things associated with it. That's why it's important, folks, to go out anytime it's sunny during the winter and just walk around without sunglasses for about an hour, and you'll just get totally excited. I was a little bummed out yesterday. I went to a tanning bed, something I don't do except in the deep of winter. It's artificial. It's not probably good as the sun, but I just felt fabulous at about 8 o'clock at night last night when I went and did that. It was like a just total recharge. So there's that news right there. And, again, the reason I'm covering this right now is if you watch these videos that are up on Infowars.com and are linked right there as, I guess, the 8th story down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, no, 9 stories down at Drudge Report, drudgereport.com. Panic shoppers fight over food. And it just shows that, I mean, I'm not plugging our sponsor. I guess I might as well just say this hour brought to you by mypatriotsupply.com/Alex. That's the reason I have storable food. That's the reason it really stores like 25 years, but after it's about 5 years old, I just go give it to the local food bank. It's high quality, and then just buy more. That's what I do. And it totally lasts for 10 years. They've proven it'll last 25, but whatever. It's like this race for how long it can last. The point is that it's the best storable food out there. MyPatriotSupply.com/Alex or 866-229-0927. And I didn't even intend to plug that right now. I would have done it later. But this is why we have storable food. This is why we have guns. This is why I know how to change a tire. And compared to my dad, who knows how to fix cars and knows how to roof the roof or fix anything, basically, he doesn't know as much as his dad knew. Because back then, you were the auto shop. You were the roofing company. You were the plumber. I mean, I am like a gibbering idiot compared to somebody like my dad or his dad who could skin a buck. I mean, I can skin a buck. I can run a trot line. I mean, I make our own whiskey and our own smoke, too. There ain't many things these old boys can't do. That they want you domesticated, ladies and gentlemen. They want you to be hyphenated, balkanized Americans that literally don't know how to change a tire, don't know how to do anything. And it is getting worse and worse and worse by the minute. And people don't know how to do basic math now because of calculators, myself included. I mean, I'm like a mental moron now at math. I'll try to do it shorthand on a piece of paper if I don't have an iPhone with me. I mean, this is part of the dumbing down of the technocracy. There's a lot of things in the technological development that empower humans, but overall, it's a negative thing. No one can debate that. All the aggregates are there, all the actuaries, all the numbers. And if we have a real depression, again, 90% of this country, look it up, in the 10-year depression from 29 to 40, 11-year, I guess, still went into 41 or so, but the point is 11, 12-year depression. 7 million people starved to death or died from malnutrition, from other colds and things. Major university studies, you can look it up. With 90% being rural, about 50% being fully self-sufficient. We're now 90% urban, 10% rural. Half the rural communities are somewhat self-sufficient. That's 5% versus 50 being fully self-sufficient. I mean, you're talking about a Rhodes scenario with Viggo Mortensen. If this unfolds, ladies and gentlemen, if we have a collapse, it will be Road Warrior. Just give us the gas, we spare your lives. But you can still go to the most popular area of Infowars.com and find the article about more bullets being bought by Homeland Security. This time they're buying Zombie Killer, which is really high-quality, boat-tailed, long-distance sniper round that just so happens to be hollow, partially hollow inside, and is illegal under the Geneva Convention to even use in warfare. The reason I keep plugging Drudge is he keeps our stuff up that's important on the front page. You go to drudgereport.com. It's in the middle column. And if we show that at drudgereport.com, I like how he mixes it together with the other stuff to give you an image of what's happening. Right under the monster Pelosi, who looks like she's gone one Botox shot too far, Pelosi PAC runs ads slamming Obamacare. Well, I mean, they're running away from their great victory. Homeland purchasing 141,000 more rounds of sniper ammo. That, by the way, is illegal under the Geneva Convention. Watson should probably add that. And then under it, outfitting city buses with spy cameras. And then here's the key, tying it together, National Guard trains to fight Second Amendment supporters. By the way, nationwide. And I know I keep harping on that day after day, but we used to get the secret documents and people wouldn't believe it about this. Now it's like all over the news. Yes, the main enemy is the gun owners and the veterans, and don't talk about the founders. They wouldn't be welcome in today's army. I mean, this is West Point, folks. This is all AP, Reuters, Fox News going, should we ban the Declaration of Independence? Boston Globe, is it hateful? All men are created equal, endowed by their creator? I mean, we have a right to revolt against oppression. Is that actually legal to say you have a right to revolt against a tyranny? 2 years ago, they had an article. They had a bunch of them saying, should we get rid of the Declaration of Independence? Is it treason, I think was the headline. When freedom fails, the best men rot in filthy jails, and those that cried, appease, appease, are hung by those they tried to please. It'd be like if the ocean was alive, the H2O was alive and had a voice. It was there talking to the captain of a submarine and just said, open the doors, open the torpedo launch tubes, let the water come in, depressurize. You're going to not be racist against water anymore. Just open the bulkhead. Just let the state run your kids. Just take the shot. Just trust us. We're going to spy on you for your own good. Open the door. Open the door. Come to me, my child. What's the movie, Event Horizon, where they go into like the dimension of hell, and the woman misses her baby, her dead daughter, a little girl, and they said, "Mommy, I'm here. Open the airlock. I'm here. I'm liberal. I'm Obama. Oh." And then you open the, I'm gonna doot. Opens, my baby. I mean, it is just the mind control, the magnitude. We should all be running around like chickens with our heads cut off. That the military is training for war with people that like the Bill of Rights and Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and private property, the family, the right to self-defense. I mean, they're a bunch of thugs. The mayor of New York secretly, caught 50-plus mayors have quit, saying once we register, we will confiscate. We already knew that. One of his own group members, Mike Martinez here in Austin, Mayor Pro Tem, admitted that last year to us on video. He said, we're not going to confiscate now, but if we register, we will. So get ready. And his whole gang of them all look at each other because they're on the winning team, they think. And you got the governor in New York, Cuomo. All his bodyguards saying, hey, you got guns, you're pro-life, get out of the state. That's like out of an old Western. You don't like what we're doing in this town, making your teenage daughter serve in the brothel, you can just get out of here. Just like total mafia thug piece of crap. I mean, just in our face. Can you imagine what John Wayne would think, ladies and gentlemen, if... And it's not that I even dislike these people. You got to understand, folks, people listen to my show for 19 years know the whole gay thing is just not what I'm, obsessing on. I mean, a lot of people that are obsessing on it from the other end are, they're obsessing on it because me thinks they protest too much. The whole issue here, ladies and gentlemen, though, is that it's a political agenda attaching all the socialism, all the communism, all the collectivism, all the eugenics, all the anti-family. Turn on the news, turn on a sitcom, men are degraded. Heterosexual men are run down. They're put down. I've seen 2.5 men. One time visited friends downtown. They have a big area. We were getting coffee downstairs in the building, and they had a big TV on. Nobody was in there, and it was 2.5 men, the new version, putting down heterosexual men. And then I was at somebody else's house, and it was on, and it was another episode, putting down heterosexual men. It's literally a overwrite of society, a very aggressive cult move. And can you imagine what John Wayne would think? A guy who literally went over to the Communist Party headquarters in L.A. one time and personally beat up, this is in the FBI files, 7 communists. Can you imagine what John Wayne, not perfect, but a really good guy, Can you imagine what John Wayne would think? Think where we've gone from John Wayne and Charles Bronson and those type of figures to guys dressing like girls in makeup when they do their exercises or when they compete at the Olympics. I mean, it is an assault, ladies and gentlemen, and it never ends. It never ends. This is not about equality. This is not about compassion. This is not about being tolerant. It is about adoption. And why? We covered this in Endgame 2.0 with Dr. Kaufman. I'm going to go watch that again and pull up the university documents. I forget which ones. There was a couple of them. It was in the psychology departments and sociology departments. And they said, no, we're going to promote homosexuality. We're going to degrade the image of a man to reduce population and to break up families so the state is the only unifying system. This is the end. Germany is banning single-family homes being built now as of this year. By 2020, they're going to start bulldozing them, many of them. It's on. You will live in a system controlled by them. I mean, this is absolutely off the chart. This is absolutely off the chart. I said I'd go to your phone calls. We're going to go to them right now. It's just that they're taking all the basic liberties. They're discriminating against black, white, Catholic, Protestant, atheist, heterosexual, homosexual, Muslim, Jew, German, Chinese, Mexican, Nigerian, mega banks above the law, tax exempt, diplomatic immunity, armed to the teeth, jet copters, their own jumbo jets, above the law, everything, getting our tax money while they're tax exempt, lobbying for socialism that they're exempt from. And meanwhile, they've got us all running around saying you're against, quote, gay people or people with other sexual preferences if you don't want sex education of 5-year-olds. And now they've got Hillary Clinton in curriculum in the schools and Michelle Obama. I mean, I want these people out of my life. If there was some beautiful female actress that was the most beautiful ever and who had the greatest poetry, let's say Kate Upton with a big brain, and they were shoving her in my face 24/7 and just telling me I had to adopt what she said and what she wanted and what she was doing, I would say, leave me alone, stop trying to tell me what to do. I would get sick of it. I would get sick of it. Even the most beautiful vista up in the mountains, you get sick of it, you want to see something else. I mean, I am sick of this, man, just being hammered and hit with brainwashing and propaganda and agendas so that Daddy and mommy, I mean, the demonization in literature and on TV and in all the trendy shops where it shows, a woman making dinner and it says, oh, I always wanted to be somebody. I just should have, wanted to actually be something that mattered. As if a woman staying home with her children and running the finances in the house isn't a full-time job and isn't the most important thing ever for the civilization to go forward. Now the state rules the kids, raises them. Look what's happened. None of this was done putting women in the workforce to empower women. It was done to get 100% paying taxes. It was done on record. Edward Bernays wrote 3 books bragging about it. They engineered the whole program worldwide. You go to Rockefeller or Rothschild houses, because I've gone and looked at photos and photo books and stuff their families have leaked and stuff that's come out over the years. I mean, it's all women wearing 50-style dresses, and the men are in charge, and the women are all empowered, running the house and the money and the whole 9 yards, and they're having 5, 6, 7 kids. But they tell you, you don't do that. You understand that? Women, you get ahead by hating your husband. You get ahead by using your husband, and then your kids are destroyed. And the men are a bunch of slobs, too. The men see the role models of acting like schlubs on TV, and they buy into that as well. It's scientific. It's not my opinion. Become aware of it. And then meanwhile, I'm going to get to the stock market stuff with Paul Craig Roberts and what's happening in the Ukraine and Salente. So I won't get to any more news. And House report on Benghazi attack, false White House for secret lapses, security lapses. Smith on Iraq Christians in Congress. Life appears to be worse now than under Saddam. That was the whole point, bud. Christians the most persecuted. Peer research, 10-1. The UN just everywhere just lines them up, shoots them. It even ends up in the New York Times. But like, well, they did line them up by the thousands and kill them. You know, look at Syria. Look at all of it. We got incredible science news I haven't gotten to. This is a monster. Sunspot now larger than Jupiter. It's hundreds of times the size of the Earth. Continues to unleash solar flares. Owner of Obama's baloney will stop a super flare from blowing out all the satellites. I mean, can't you wave that magic wand, suspend the laws of physics, like you do with your stupid global warming tax garbage? Here's a new one. New U.S. military space plane aims for 2017 liftoff. Let me decipher this. Aircraft, space planes developed in the late 70s will now be rolled out 40 years in the future. We're not going to let you know the 35, 40-year other advanced Black Manna and other systems that are at least 15 years old. And by the way, I have talked to the former head of the Star Wars program on record. I have talked to the top-level NASA people, folks, and the stuff they've got is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And they didn't tell me classified stuff. They told me what had been accidentally leaked and just said, you're right, it's 35, 40 years advanced. They had fleets of robot drones in space, operational with DU Meteor gun sabos in 1979. You're not in Kansas anymore. The vaccines have nanotech to re-engineer your brain. That's why people are acting like zombies, folks. I'm telling you, it's on. You're living in the Twilight Zone, baby, and so am I. And I'm quite frankly excited about it. I don't like it's happening, but I am, man, let me tell you, I'm not bored. I mean, whoa. You want me to watch football again? You think I care about that? I care about what the Japanese astronomers and people have shown, these big, giant floating platforms up in space. You think the International Space Station? They've got stuff in deep orbit out there that is amazing. 6, 7, 8 football fields square. And do you know what's floating on it? Oh, some real fun toys. Now, this is crazy. We're being walled off in this world with Justin Bieber and all these mindless people and everyone just following what television says, imagining their stars, imagining by buying into the hype that it's empowering them while total evil is taking over. We've got to break through the wall of fake national security that's the elite security for a breakaway civilization. We've got to capture the future. We need the life extension technology that they're already hoarding. We need Elysium for ourselves. Their answer to give you Elysium is to open the borders. No, the answer is to give the technology to everybody and to break these monopolies. The elite will never get off this planet if they don't do that. You can just prime project on every angle. You're not going to do the wrong thing and get the future. You're going to really screw stuff up. All right, I'm going to stop ranting. It's just so incredible. Let's go to Tony, then Jonathan, Adam, Rich, and Kim. Tony, you're on the air. Welcome. Hello, my friend. How you doing today?
What's up, Alex? Hey, I want to throw a couple things out here I've been noticing in the last month. I'm in Orange County, California. I went fishing this last weekend down in San Diego, fishing at the lake, and I saw a drone launch from the back of a military chopper. And that was kind of interesting. I recorded it on my iPad and kind of sketched me out a little bit, so I had to leave the lake real quick. I got home, and then I saw another one launch there at Lemon Grove down in San Diego. So I know they're doing something big down in San Diego. I think something's going to happen here real quick.
Well, Google's moving into all these DARPA and NASA bases, building all sorts of secret stuff in giant warehouses. I mean, it's just crazy land, man. It's total crazy land. Can you imagine the technology we're seeing if it's 35, 40 years advanced on average? Can you imagine? No wonder they're so arrogant. No wonder they don't care. I mean, it's amazing. They have stolen everything using our ingenuity to build a breakaway civilization. You get what I'm saying, brother?
Yeah, we're way behind. They're so far ahead of us. We're everybody's zombied out. Everybody's brains are turned off.
Well, they're getting ready for extermination. I mean, you got to say they are being somewhat, at least in the West, somewhat loving about it. They're giving us, it's a soft kill. They're basically killing our brains before they finally physically kill the body. And I guess we should. I mean, I mean, the little kids dying of cancer, in some cases 10,000 percentage points higher in pediatric cancer. I mean, you know, they have excruciating, horrible deaths, but that's a loving thing the globalists did for us. They're good people.
Yeah, we should thank them, really. I mean, you know, it'll be a lot easier for when we do get taken out, right?
Well, yeah, it's very loving. It's very loving. Of course, you know, the elite aren't going to stop wanting to kill people and dominate once they've wiped us out. All right, anything else, extremist?
We love you, Alex. That's all, man. We love you.
We love you. I do. I love humanity. We're going to come right back. Stay with us. And we, again, have Dr. Paul Craig Roberts coming at the bottom of the hour after news and your calls for 30 minutes on the situation in Ukraine, the Olympics, the economy, QE Unlimited, the Market Watch report out of the Wall Street Journal, scary 1929 market chart gains traction. That's all coming up with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former head of the Treasury Department policy, the father of Reaganomics, joining us. And then we're going to have Gerald Celente on as well. Both men work together over there at the Trends Journal. I'm going to go to Mike in Illinois, Adam, Jonathan, Kim. Here I am saying I want to go to calls early because of my voice, but then I don't do it, of course. But I did cover a lot of news. So, briefly, the Molon Labe, come and take it in Greek, is here, and it has Infowars.com on the back, and it is the Made-in-1776.com, Made in America. And usually a Made in America t-shirt like this would be $40. It's $22. And I'll just tell you right now, to have these Made in America cost us like $9. And so that's, for clothing, that is not a markup, folks. And that's how we fund our operation. But this will really make the globalist mad when you wear this. It's a very popular icon, and it's just really good. Well, one of our great graphics people put together, it's the Spartan helmet with two M4s crossed with the victory laurel leaves around it. I mean, it is a shrine to resistance and not being disarmed. It's a signet of power and liberty. And it needs to be worn on your breast. And all of you need to get it. A shield against tyranny. Symbols have power. And this is a powerful symbol forged in the heart of liberty. So, InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Adam. You're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, Alex, thank you so much for having me on the show. I wanted to ask you, have you ever seen the film The Purge? Because this film alone goes against every single thing that you are fighting for. It talks about the new founding fathers taking over America. This movie has grossed over $100 million. And they're releasing a sequel now, which talks about nobody has access to guns except for the rich. Everybody can kill each other for 12 hours once a year.
You know, I saw the trailer for that, and I never went and saw it because I don't like those, you know, thing where guys are creeping around with knives, and it's so scary. It's just ridiculous. Go out there and beat their brains out with baseball bats. But, you know, the larger issue is I did see the trailer, and yes, I should have done a movie review on that. Sounds disgusting. Tell us more about it.
Well, the first movie, because there's two. The other one's coming out June 20th, but the first one talks about every year, starting in the year 2017 through the year 2022, every year for 12 hours, crime is legalized throughout not even the United States. They've taken over the United States. They have now called it the new founding fathers of America.
No, but that's how they demonize. They do this in all these movies where the tyranny government's taken over. But they don't really say that in the movie till the end. And then it's founding fathers to demonize the idea of founding fathers. Is that how the movie goes?
Yes, and check out The Purge Anarchy that's on YouTube. The trailer just dropped. It will blow your mind.
All right, we'll do a review of the trailer. Guys, pull that up.
Going over everything. It's gonna
well done, Lord Vader. One of my friends just texted me a Star Wars quote. Now that I'm 40 in one day, your power is a weak old man. Let's go right back to your calls. You've been holding long enough. And Paul Craig Roberts is coming up on geopolitics, huge breaking news on finances. It's all coming up. But right now, let's go to Kim in Washington. Thank you for holding. As another first-time caller, welcome.
Hi, Alex. I'm calling today because I wanted to talk about my daughter. She was damaged by the MMR vaccine when she got her booster.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the really bad ones, yeah.
It is. And, you know, the doctors have been denying that this has happened.
Well, of course, they're accomplices.
Sure. Well, so it started, you know, she got her shot, and within a couple hours, she started walking like she was drunk. This continued.
Oh, that's standard. That's a neurological autoimmune response in the brain, like similar to Guillain-Barré. Right. Is that what they told you, or they deny that?
No, well, they've said that this is a mysterious illness. Oh. And so it went from her walking like she was drunk to having double vision to being unresponsive, small seizures, and she ended up in the hospital with massive brain swelling.
Yeah, see, there you go. I mean, I've interviewed so many medical doctors. That's why I know that. Look, the vaccine inserts say it can do that to you. But
right.
Well, listen, here's the problem. You're lucky they didn't say you beat her up with the brain breeding, because it's much worse for boys because they're not as strong blood-brain barrier as women. Women are much tougher than men when it comes to trauma, you name it, because they have to go through childbirth. That's just a genetic fact in all mammals. It's on record.
Right.
From whales to Homo sapiens sapien. And I'm just so sad to hear this. But, yeah, no, but imagine the little boys. It's many times worse. And then they give the 18-month-old the third round. You're blessed if they have the convulsion and then become autistic from brain damage right there in the hospital, because then they look at the surveillance camera and can't say you beat them up, because they like the double juicy bonus of putting you in prison and institutionalizing the child they've just brain damaged. But I'm sorry, go back to what happened to your daughter.
So, you know, so now she is legally mentally disabled.
Huh.
She's in the 6th grade, and she does 2nd grade level work.
How old was she when they hit her with the chemwep?
This actually happened. I got them done late, so this actually happened between the 1st and the 2nd grade.
Yeah, and so she was doing great at the 1st and 2nd grade, and then they lied to you and said it was the law. You got to have the shots for school, which is not true. It's part of a criminal conspiracy, a eugenics operation, and then you gave her the shot, and this happened.
Yes, and you know the reason I'm calling is because.
Do me a favor, talk right into your telephone. I think somebody else is on your phone line listening. Is somebody else at your house? Go ahead.
So there's 2 reasons why I'm calling to tell this story. The first is that this could not have happened to my daughter if I was a so-called anti-vaccination conspiracy nut. The second reason I am calling is because I made a huge mistake by never questioning the doctors in the system. This is my only way to honor her now, is by telling people what had happened to her. And
well, ma'am, I'm obnoxious. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to come back and give you the floor for 4 minutes to start the whole story over and tell it as a testament, because I get so upset when you start talking because I know what you're going to say, and I've seen it thousands of times. I'll see an autistic kid, and I'll say, let me guess, 18 months, 3rd round, MMR. I mean, it's like clockwork. It's all on purpose. There's all these government documents. They admit it. And they're just literally trying to kill our children's brains. And I just love my daughter so much, and my son. And I have empathy. I feel your daughter as if it was my daughter, and it makes me very violent feeling. I'm going to be quite honest with you. And I just hope the doctors are all real proud of themselves. And the cancer, the brain damage, the autism up 30,000% now. Stay there, ma'am. I'm going to come back to you, start the whole story over, give a testament from Kim, and then we'll talk to Jonathan, and we'll talk to Reese, Joseph, Duluth, and others. The enemy's operations are so over the top, the eugenicist by the 40s said, we're having trouble forcibly sterilizing people worldwide and dumbing them down, and the answer was from the Soviet gulags. This is the Pulitzer Prize-winning, 2 Pulitzer Prize-winning books on the Nuremberg trials, because the Nazis adopted hydrofluorosilicic acid at about 3 parts per million. They do 1.6 part per million here to massively reduce IQ points at least 20%. 1.6 does it between 7 IQ and 14 IQ, depending on the study you look at. I'm giving you Harvard studies. I'm giving you Chinese government studies, Japanese government studies, Canadian studies, University of Texas studies. You don't believe me? Just type in University of Texas study on fluoride IQ. I mean, just you know, take the challenge. Find out why I'm so freaked out. And I've always been a sane person, but it is insane what the globalists are doing, and to sit there and watch them carry it out. And to know that you keep hearing about secret sterilizations in Texas and California that are totally illegal, where they grab foster kids, you name it, and sterilize them, prisoners and sterilize them. And they'll even do surgery tests on them and test dioxin on them. You know, it comes in, it's like, well, nobody's going to get in trouble, and it's all been sealed. And, oh, we did take your blood from birth since 1972 and put it in a global database. And companies say they own your blood now, blah, 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 your DNA. And then a lady called in the last segment who just joined us, Kim in Washington, and I was illustrating. Let me guess. She took the shot and then had blood on the brain and convulsions and then lost a bunch of her IQ. Because, see, it's designed to only skim off 10, 20 points. But sometimes you have a catastrophic event, especially in males, because of the blood-brain barrier and other issues, according to medical doctors. And I'm here talking about, it's not like Joe Stalin lining folks up and shooting them, or Hitler. They just have doctors who believe in what they're doing, the nurses, they're brain-damaging people. They pretty much know what's going on now, but they can't admit the whole thing was wrong. Going back 8 years ago now, the American Dental Association, via lawsuits and their own toxicologist going public, the head toxicologist in Canada, who's also a dentist, has gone public, who promoted fluoridation, and he's now apologized. That was 2 years ago. That was all over the Canadian papers about how deadly it is and how he believed the lies. The point is that for 7, 8 years, about 8 years ago now, you can look this up, they said stop giving children under 6 fluoride toothpaste or fluoride water. But then you notice they rolled out fluoride for kids in all the major bottled water. Started fortifying juice drinks with it and stuff, calling it minerals added for flavor. And they put the most deadly type. You need calcium fluoride or you will die. Very small amounts of it. You need arsenic, very low amounts, or you will die. You need lead, very low amounts, or you will die. It's all part of the chain reaction, ring structure, cell transfers, according to the scientists we've interviewed. It's well-known science, but they're giving it to you at hundreds of thousands of times what you need. And they're giving you the electrified hydrofluorosilicic acid. So they're taking it and turbocharging it so that it then acts as an adjuvant to the other drugs added to the food and water to then elevate the level of the drugging. And that's why people look so unhealthy and society screwed up. I mean, you're in the matrix, folks. You're being hit with chemical, biological attack. That's why when some arrogant cop or somebody yells at me filming in public, I start laughing. I go, man, you're a slave. They're going to take your pension fund. You know this isn't freedom. Why are you following these orders? How much of your family's dying of cancer right now? I did this in England and the U.S. repeatedly on tape. And they just go, oh, what do you know about that? And I'm like, well, I saw in the local British paper that half the Brits by 2010 are going to have cancer. He goes, I know. Why is it going up? Why's everybody got it? And I'm like, it's a chemical biological warfare program. Here are some books you can read written by the enemy. You understand you're not part of the winning team? And they go, I already know that. I'm just following my orders. Well, I'm like, okay, just whatever, man. I told you what's going on. And I'm not a hero. I'm nothing special. They're killing us. Of course I'm warning you. It's not special that I'm telling you this. It's crazy. They put plastic in most of the fast food bread that gives you kidney failure and liver failure on record. And I think about this woman who called in and her little sweet first-grade daughter who they lied to and said, take the MMR shot. Just joined us. She was telling the story. I wanted to recap the whole thing without me interrupting. And they gave her the MMR shot, and then she couldn't walk. First she was stumbling, then couldn't walk, then had seizures, blood on the brain. They admitted it all. Said, we don't know what the mystery illness is. Folks, they designed Gardasil to eat your ovaries. We told you that 8 years ago with scientists and doctors. And they had Rick Perry lie and say it's the law to take it. And a majority of Texas girls lined up and took it. And, folks, they are wrecks now. And they got away with it. They got away with it. And I've had Rick Perry's staff not once but twice now. People I see on TV, but off record. You know, people that are really come to me and apologize. And go, what do we do? One of them was in the military at Fort Sam Houston and saw special forces brought in. It was 6 years before Endgame. He came to the Endgame premiere, so that was 14 years ago. Right when Perry was already governor, or about to be governor. And he came in, this is before he worked for Perry, And they all gave them inoculations. I think he said it was 8 of them. And they all died 2 days later. And they strapped them all down. They said, we're giving them inoculations. And went, oh, they don't give you all the info. They go, oh, they're sick. They're convulsing. Probably some type of rabies or something. Weaponized rabies. They strapped them all down as these special forces guys were murdered. Then they sent guys in hazmat suits to spray bleach all over the walls and take them out. And before they did that, they sucked all the blood out of the troops. And you know what they were going to do. They're using their blood as growth medium. Then literally took the troops and sucked their blood out for growth medium. You want to compromise with these people? You think they just use fetal cells to grow vaccines? They use the troops' blood and organs. You're nothing to them, and the sooner you figure that out, the sooner we're going to turn this around. And he goes, what do I do? He goes, Rick Perry's really good. You know, he believed in all that. He didn't. He goes, but I know a lot of this is true because I saw it. You saw it, didn't you? But what? You know, give them shots, watch them die. It's loving. It's loving. So take all the shots, okay? The government wants to help you. Let's talk to Kim. Kim, you've got 4 minutes. Tell your story of what happened to your daughter, where you're at, and how it all unfolded. Go ahead.
Starting from the beginning, or where we're at now?
No, because some stations just joined us. Start over with what your daughter, what happened.
Okay. My daughter was vaccinated by the MMR vaccine, the booster. Within a couple hours, she started walking like she was drunk. She could not walk a straight line. And this continued for a few weeks. And, you know, honestly, I was so young, I didn't really connect it to the shot, unfortunately. It was looking back now that I've seen, you know, it started within a couple hours. It continued on for weeks. She'd be walking and then just fall over on the ground.
And let me guess, the hospital didn't even tell you to give her Benadryl or anything to reduce swelling or anything. They just said, we don't know what's happening. Yeah.
No.
They're like, we're giving your daughter a gift. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sure. And I took her back to the doctor and told him what was happening. And, you know, they had no explanation. They didn't even, it was almost like they were just ignoring what I was saying. And so she started complaining of double vision. You know, I'd be talking to her and she'd be like, Mommy, I see a whole bunch of you. And, you know, I took her back to the doctor for that. And
no putting her on ice, no giving her Benadryl, no nothing, when they knew full well what they'd just done, but they couldn't diagnose it or they would admit they did it. So they sat there and watched her lose her IQ. But tell us what happened next.
Absolutely. And so, you know, she'd go into these spells where she'd just stare. And I'd try and talk to her, and she wouldn't even talk back to me. This continued for months, about 2 months. I took her to the doctor. I took her into the ER for the double vision. They all ignored me. Honestly, they ignored me. After 2 months, I looked in at her, and she was completely slumped over. She couldn't move. She couldn't even pick up her own head. But she was complaining of headaches. And so I took her into the hospital, and they were trying to say she had meningitis and all of these crazy things that she did not have. The test came back negative.
Of course.
And she had massive brain swelling. They had to put her on steroids to get the brain swelling to stop. We were in there for weeks. But
it slowed it down, didn't it?
Yeah.
But see, they could have given you that minutes after, but they can't admit they just did it. So they send you off, and for liability, I mean, these people, these doctors and nurses are murdering people's brains. You know, a lot of people die. I mean, just search woman dies after flu shot, boy dies after flu shot, boy dies after MMR shot. It's happening all the time.
It is happening all the time. And, you know, my daughter was one of those people. And her life has been changed forever.
This is too
before
powerful. We're skipping the break. The money doesn't matter. Can skip the break. Continue, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. Before this happened, she was a happy, thriving little girl. She had friends. She had fun. She did excellent in school. Granted, she didn't have a lot of schooling under her belt because she was young, but she was doing wonderful. She was such a sweet, happy girl. And when this happened, it felt like when I left that hospital, my daughter died, and I have someone else now.
No, that's what they did. They gave your daughter partial lobotomy, and they do that to little babies every day. They do it to little girls, little boys. They sterilize them with the Gardasil, and it's all on record. But it's so horrible, the public can't admit it. And even when doctors get brain-damaged children themselves, they won't admit it, most of them. But let me tell you, most doctors I know and nurses, they pressured me 3 times to give shots, even though the doctor we had was a listener and a good lady. But it's such a cult from the hospital management, and the nurses would always go, we don't give our kids it either. We know it causes autoimmune stuff, but we get fired if we don't push it. And we need, if this is, but because all we're talking about is gay, lesbian, black, white, you know, blah, 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 Michelle Obama's arms, while meanwhile they're doing this to everybody. And it tears my guts out, but also sends me into a rage, because here's the deal. They're now beginning, for the first time ever in California and New York, actual forced inoculations, where they're not just lying and saying it's the law to show their criminality. It's the law this August to get vaccinated. There's 50 vaccines by law you've got to get. Show up at Zilker Park in Austin to get your free shots, parents. Prevent disease. And people will even collapse there, or they'll go, oh, they just got scared by the shot. My daughter's having a convulsion 10 minutes after. Well, we don't know what that is. Blood's coming out their nose, out their ears, you know. That's a gift. That's the gift of the New World Order. It's the sacrament. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic with you. Your pain really gets to me, but I'm being cynical with dark satire back at the people that go along with this. And I mean, I know medical doctors who literally I've run into, and that I knew years ago, let's just say connected to family, who literally hate my guts because I talk about this, and they go, well, there are some problems, but problems are outpaced by benefits, cost-benefit analysis. But that's not even true. And they go, well, don't you believe in the science of inoculation and acquired immunity? And I go, yes, I know it's 500 years old. I know it started with pox. I know how it was. They took the pustules with a toothpick and shove it under the skin. I get all that. Give someone a lesser exposure so they don't get the full exposure. Give it to them when their immune system's up, not down. You'd usually get it when you had a bad immune system, and it would kill you. So give it to someone when they're doing well. Still, though, the pox treatment could kill people sometimes. It was a cost-benefit analysis. But pox out of somebody's pussy arm put into your son or daughter so that they don't get it when they're sick and then die is not genetically engineered super weapons by a global government known for doing 100 years of secret testing and literally creating Nazi Germany as a testing ground and then destroying it, who are involved in depopulation and openly saying babies are like mackerel. I have articles here today where they're now coming out saying it's end-of-life planning to kill your unborn child or your baby. I mean, that's how, there it is right there on screen. This is the type of stuff that we're talking about. And when you're faced with something this evil, this over the top, by the authorities, it's hard for the average person to come to grips with it. I believe in the science of inoculation. The elites get very special, proprietary, multi-thousand dose, made in incredibly clean laboratories. They get real vaccines. And that's come out in the news. The British elite, the German government, and the German military heard about it and said, we're not taking it unless you give us that. This is the issue. Then they lie to you and say, oh, we've cleaned up the vaccines. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. It's not cleaning them up. It's done on purpose. Bayer put HIV and hepatitis in the factor 8 and knew it and shipped it out to hundreds of thousands and killed them. Okay, and that all came out in court, folks. That's on the news. They wanted to kill people. They knew and did it. They want to kill you. They will kill you if they can. But they don't want you to know how you got killed. They want to hit you in 20 years. Down the road, you drop with debilitating diseases. They know what you're going to get from what they've done to you. They develop the treatments, not the cures. And then while testing all this stuff on you, they're developing life extension technologies for themselves. And I've given you the entire paradigm of the enemy. Your daughter is not dead. Her soul is there. She can be taught to grow again. I would limit the television screen time. I would play her classical music. I would pray for her. I would take her to the top of clear, clean mountains, and she can come back from it. Your daughter is not dead. They wish she was. But God bless you, and I really appreciate your call.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And sometimes I go off when I get a caller like that for 20, 30 minutes because, ladies and gentlemen, this is so serious. Talk about dehumanization. Police shoot helper dog instead of, they shoot labs, you name it all the time. They'll come out with their tail wagging, they'll shoot them. Some cases the dogs are growling, and I get why somebody shoots a big scary dog, but it's not a bull mastiff. It's not a, it's a pit bull or something. They shoot chihuahuas and stuff as a default. You should be a little bit more manly if you want to be a cop, or womanly, Valkyrie-like. But here's Sha'Carri Jackson's report on this event that happened a few days ago from InfoWars Nightly News. Police shoot a service dog. Here's the report. It's a fat lab barking. Obviously tell that dog's not a threat. I mean, the cop should just yell and say, "Get out of here!" Should kick it in the head.
At some point, we've all been annoyed by a barking dog or a dog on the loose, and sometimes police are called in to handle these situations. But is this the type of police response that you would want to happen in your own front yard? And yes, once again, those dogs should have been under the direct supervision and control of their owner. But with a modern officer carrying things such as pepper spray, was lethal force really necessary? And let's stay on this topic of lethal force. What if the gun was turned the other way and the officer was in the crosshairs? That's exactly what happened right here in the state of Texas. Sheriffs looking for marijuana burst into a man's home and ran straight into gunfire by a startled resident, killing an officer. The resident was able to avoid a murder charge, but it goes to show that over-aggressive police tactics can backfire on officers. Over-aggressive tactics such as kicking a woman out of her own home. A woman was displaced from her home so a SWAT team could perform reconnaissance, much like we saw during the Boston bombing. But to give credit where it's due, not all officers are out in the streets behaving badly, such as in New York, where they just busted up a New York crime syndicate with joint agency cooperation. So if we have more stories like this, police going after real crimes and going after the real perpetrators and not harassing the general populace, we can break free of this current police state. You can find more reports at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv.
All right, that's Sha'Carri Jackson. That's just a minute and a half of the 30-minute news transmission every night, 7 o'clock Central, PrisonPlanet.tv. I've got a Leanne McAdoo report I've got to get to, but I don't think we have time to air it right now. I'm going to air it later in the broadcast because it's so important. It deals with a dumpster diving professor who's trying to teach us that we should live with nothing so that the globalists can have bigger red carpets, bigger palaces, and live like kings, while telling us we can't have air conditioning or over a 250-square-foot home so that more of what we make can be paid in taxes. That's what the austerity is all about. That's going to be coming up after Dr. Paul Craig Roberts leaves us. We're going to play that with Gerald Celente and talk about this artificial scarcity economy that is Agenda 21 worldwide grid. Briefly, super male vitality, folks, is the #1 item that people reorder. The highest level of reorder for super male vitality. That's a fusion of, 8 top herbs from organic, concentrated form. And you've heard the rave reviews. We got 15% off going on super male vitality from InfoWarsLife.com. We brought you the best available, period. I said no expense will be spared. I want the best Dr. Group, and it's blowing people away. The problem is we're going to sell out at the rate we're selling it in about 4 or 5 days, and then it might be as much as 2 weeks before we get more because they're waiting for one other herb to come in because we don't have the dry herbs. We have the raw herbs to concentrate it. So if you want to get it, order it now. People just love this 15% off. kind of hurting myself doing it, but it funds the operation as well, so you win-win-win. There's no way you can lose purchasing products at InfoWarsLife.com. And we have the new Molon Labe shirt that I think is the best-looking T-shirt we've ever had. Come and take it with the Greek Spartan and the M4s on the front, InfoWars.com on the back. That's InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsStore.com. And your purchase is vital to our resistance. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, he's an American economist, and he's, of course, a syndicated columnist as well. He's a former editor of the Wall Street Journal and Business Week, and he is the father of Reaganomics, and he's really needs no introduction to our audience. We have a lot of new stations, a lot of new listeners, so I guess he does. And we'll give you his website address as well on screen coming up here in just a moment. We also carry his work at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But before I go any further, I just want to cover the waterfront with him to make sense of what's going on in the economic meltdown, clearly a global depression. This Market Watch article, scary 1929 market chart, gains traction. Government is gearing up for a collapse. I think we're going into a slow collapse, but I want to get an update from him on that. But first, the reason I wanted to get him on last week, and now he's here, is to talk about Ukraine. And again, I'm not a Putinite, but compared to what we've got, our system's so bad, he's not aggressively trying to expand things and stop the Syria war, the purge of Christians. Clearly, the Saudi Arabians are bombing them because they didn't go along with the takeover of Syria to destabilize the Olympics. But you see Ukraine not voting at first to go with the EU. And now Russia is not even trying to control Ukraine from what I've seen. I want a free and independent Ukraine. And George Soros' people are all over this, as usual, trying to destabilize Russia because they want a new world order run by the Wall Street kleptocrats. They want a new world order run by anti-free market folks that make the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, look like a saint. That's the bottom line. This is not America doing this to Russia. This is criminal elements doing it, in my view. I want Dr. Roberts' take on that. So there's the preface of my questions and how I see it. This is a big deal, though, to be trying to overthrow Ukraine, and audio recordings of this, obviously, with ambassadors coming out, and a very serious situation. Dr. Roberts, give us your expert breakdowns. I know you were in big talks with the Russians so they bring down their empire at the end of the Reagan administration. I know that you know a lot of these folks. You know the French. You've gotten their highest award for some of the work you've done on that front as well. What's really happening right now?
In the Ukraine, there was a joint effort initially between the EU and Washington to bring the to bring the Ukraine into NATO and into EU. Now, the EU just wanted an expansion of its domain. Washington wanted to have the Ukraine incorporated into NATO so they can put more military bases on Russia's frontier. And they also want to have their puppets running the country so that it can be opened up for looting by the American banks and the American corporations, like, for example, Latvia was. So what has happened is for many years, Washington and also the EU have been financing what are called NGOs, non-governmental organizations, in Ukraine. Last December, this Victoria Nuland, the Assistant Secretary of State who's running the operation, the American operation there, told the National Press Club that Washington had invested $5 billion in agitation in the Ukraine. And so what we're witnessing now is all of these NGOs, some of them pretend to be human rights organizations, some pretend to be educational, to teach democracy, some are just provocative. And they have used these, that is the State Department, the CIA, have used these institutions, these NGOs, to have this ongoing protest. Now, the EU and Washington have now fallen out over this because the EU has realized that for Washington to take over the Ukraine is a direct threat to Russia. And they realize that Russia can cut Europe off from oil and natural gas, and they realize that if there's a war, Europe will be destroyed.
And that's why we don't need Ukraine to fall to the EU that's going to suck it dry. That's like asking to have cancer implanted in you. Clearly predatory. As you know, their own EU documents have come out that it was a planned program to consolidate and suck countries dry. So the Ukrainians vote to not join it. And so they have hordes of paid operatives take to the streets. It'd be one thing if these were real, Ukrainians wanting to get rid of their government. But clearly these are foreign, manipulated, saboteur operatives by every benchmark.
Well, the NGOs are financed by the West, and they have provoked it. But I think most of the people out there are just dupes. They're Ukrainians.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, the Western Ukraine is...
Sure, I'm talking about the NGOs that are made up of Ukrainian operatives.
Sorry?
I was talking about the NGOs themselves, Dr.
Yeah. Well, I was in Washington when they decided to create the National Endowment for Democracy, which is sort of the parent organization for these NGOs. And the explicit purpose given was that it would be used to destabilize Eastern Europe and Soviet republics, and would be used for the benefit of American hegemony, and that's the reason it was created. And so we've seen it operate in many places. They tried to achieve that revolution, that color revolution in the Ukraine. What do they call it? The Orange Revolution, I think.
Yes, they've tried over and over again.
And they came very close to getting the Ukraine then. And
they tried to have Georgia start a war with Russia, a very dangerous situation. What do you expect Russia to do? I mean, they're starting to really get in more of a fighting stance.
Well, I don't know what they will do. One prospect is the country will split apart because the eastern Ukraine is more Russian. It's Russian Orthodox. The western Ukraine is less Russian. It's Catholic. And I think that it's really two countries, and what you may see is a split. What I find so distressing is that the Ukrainians I think these protests are largely in the western part.
No, they are. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so what I find distressing is that these protesters are such dupes that they're destroying the independence of their own country. They don't understand that if you are in the EU, that your national government is subservient to the EU.
How can they not look at Greece and Spain and Ireland and everywhere? I mean, this is like wanting to get in the car with Jeffrey Dahmer or something. Why would anyone want to join the EU?
That just shows the influence of the NGOs. You know, the NGOs, like Victoria Nuland said, Washington spent $5 billion. That's $5,000 million. You can buy a lot of people for that money. You can buy a lot. And the years of agitation by these NGOs, and also, you know, in the Western Ukraine, there's a huge disaffection from Russia. There's this dramatic form of Ukrainian nationalism, and there's a real dislike of Russia. So even though Ukraine is independent now, they have this notion that, well, the country will somehow be under Russia's thumb unless we can get under the thumb of the Europeans and the Americans. So it's kind of a nonsensical thing, but it is very dangerous because I think that the Russians do view a NATO bases in the Ukraine, or in Ukraine as it's called now.
That's right on their border.
As a direct threat. And so and this is why there's now a divergence between the EU and the United States, and why Victoria Nuland said, you know, screw the EU.
Now, for those that don't know, tell them about that.
Well, the Europeans realized that this was going too far, and they wanted to stop encouraging the protests because they understand that it dawned on them that it's a threat to Russia, and then therefore it's an indirect threat to Europe. And so the Europeans, the EU, said, we've had enough, let's stop these protests. And Washington said, no, we're going to keep them going. We're going to use the protests, turn it into a revolt, take over the government. See, we've got a list of the candidates we're going to put in charge. And the EU was protesting.
And by the way, that's what the Russians used to do, was get a quasi-puppet government in that would then invite them into these countries. We are doing what the USSR used to do. I mean, we're doing the bad guy deeds, correct?
No, but we always have, especially in Central and South America. There's never been any difference, really, between the United States and the Soviet Union and how they manipulate other countries. But what we're doing now is we're manipulating the countries in the Russian sphere of influence. We've gone beyond our own sphere of influence. The whole world now is our sphere of influence. No other country has.
And what do you make, what's the strategy? I mean, I want your take on this, to have the athletes dressing like women. I mean, you know, everybody loved us because of James Dean and John Wayne. And I mean, guys that dress like women, that's great. But should our national symbol be a man in drag? I mean, should that be our symbol at the Olympics? I don't think that propaganda is very well thought out.
No, it's not. But we don't need to get into that right now. We've got Ukraine and the economy, which are important.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying, like British Deputy Defense Minister said 2 weeks ago, the United States doesn't even seem to have a strategy now except chaos, and we're losing all the soft power. What do you think of Washington right now? I mean, how would you describe its setup? I mean, do they know what they're doing? Are they out of control? What's going on?
I think overall it's sort of out of control, but on specific things they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing in the Ukraine. And notice that this week, the House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a resolution supporting the protest in the Ukraine, as if that's got anything to do with the United States. And they issued a threat of imposing sanctions should the Ukrainian police put the protests down. So in other words, if you treat people there the way our police treat protesters in the United States, we're going to put sanctions on you. So this type of hypocrisy, it must stun the world. You know, what happens to peaceful protesters in the United States? They get beat up and tasered and tear gas.
That's right, PaulCraigRoberts.org. Let me ask you this question then. Looking at this, what does your gut tell you? How is the Ukraine going to go?
Well, I don't know. I think that ultimately it could split. If you see, the Ukraine has given up on putting down the protest, and they even abolished the laws against protest. And the police have been viciously attacked. A lot of them have been burnt with Molotov cocktails. They've been charged with bulldozers, but they haven't replied with the kind of violence that you would expect. Any protesters in the United States acting like the Ukrainian protesters are would have been shot down in the streets and killed, because the Ukrainian protests are not peaceful. They're extremely violent. And the police are just sort of sitting there taking it. So I think...
well, it's clear the government knows it was unpopular to join the EU, so they're acting like they're neutral, but the order's gone down, stand down, let this happen, fake Arab Spring, and then there'll be a civil war. It'll split up, which is the grand strategy of tension that Brzezinski's been pushing, and there you go.
I don't think the United States wants it to split up, because if it does, then the western part will be reincorporated in Russia.
And they won't get the pipelines.
And that's right. And so the rump state wouldn't be enough for the EU or the US. But I think what may happen is that the EU simply disassociates from this policy and breaks off from it, which leaves it as a Washington thing only. And that then could weaken it. And
that could be good cop, bad cop, too. Let's get to the economy. We only have a little bit of this segment, the next one left. What do you make of the, I'm sure you've seen the market graph that the Wall Street Journal Market Watch has. Scary 1929 market chart gains traction. If market follows the same script, trouble lies directly ahead. They're slowing down on QE Unlimited. Dr. Roberts.
Well, you have to keep in mind that in 1929, the United States government wasn't in there manipulating every market. There was no plunge protection team, no exchange stabilization plan. There wasn't the Federal Reserve manipulating the price of gold, driving up the price of bonds, manipulating the stock market. Today, all the markets are manipulated, so it would be a mistake to compare manipulated markets to the extent they're manipulated now.
Well, then how long can the false reality continue?
I think the Fed can manipulate things until the dollar goes. The only vulnerability that I can see in this is if there's a run on the dollar and because the Fed has really no way to guarantee to support the dollar price. They can't print foreign currencies to buy dollars, and apparently they don't any longer have any gold. So I think
that's right. The Germans asked for their gold a year ago and have gotten basically none of it.
Right. I think that the vulnerability is the dollar. The dollar is what was threatened by QE, and I think the reason they're backing off on QE is try to take some of the pressure off the dollar. Because if the dollar goes, it's a bigger crisis than the banks failing. And so their house of cards, I think, they can keep it going until there's a foreign run on the dollar. And it may not happen. It's just, you don't know how long they can keep this going.
So that's really it. The liberty, the scientists we had created the greatest technologies. They've been turned towards fraud. The world's at a technological disadvantage, and we're being inserted into a false system. And I guess that's why we see the hubris coming out of Washington.
Right. That's right. Look, the trading desk, as I understand it, the trading desk of the New York Federal Reserve Bank is now huge, and they can do everything: stocks, bonds, commodities, gold, foreign currencies. and they have the mechanisms in place to intervene in all of those markets. And in recent columns that I did together with Dave Kranzler, an experienced gold trader, we point out, we can isolate to the minute the manipulation.
Incredible. I want to talk about that manipulation straight ahead with Dr. Roberts. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, we got 6 minutes. I want to try to let him cover the rest of the economy, where he sees it going. And then we're coming up in the next hour, Naked Ambition. TSA wants new generation of body scanners. Rough seas ahead. The new Noah movie is a eugenics, anti-population, basically alien flick. Some of that's coming up. Dr. Roberts, finishing up with the fact that this whole thing's rigged. I mean, that just keeps coming out. Even the Rolling Stone did an investigation, as you know, years ago, saying it's all rigged. That was the headline. What else is on your radar? Where do we go from here? What do we do?
Well, I don't know what we can do, Alex, other than what you and I try to do, is give people information that's more or less on the mark. There's no recovery. They continue to pretend that. If you read Janet Yeltsin's testimony, she's the new Fed chairman, before Congress, it was all about how we have this recovery, which doesn't exist. So when you live in a world of complete, total disinformation, what do you do? What I suspect is going to happen, but I don't know, is the economy will continue to weaken this year. It'll get weaker. So that the deficit becomes a bigger issue again. The debt ceiling has to be raised higher. It puts more pressure. The Fed will have to restart quantitative easing or boost it, or else else they'll have to let the economy go to save the dollar. It's hard to know where the Fed will come out on this because it's really caught between two big crises. And one is you cannot forever print your currency in such enormous amounts and not see the exchange value of your currency collapse in the exchange markets. So that is the limit on their ability to have quantitative easing. On the other hand, if they don't do quantitative easing and the economy is weakening, and they're faced with collapse of employment, collapse of the bond market, collapse of the stock market, and that's an immediate crisis.
So what's the slow weaning going to do then?
The slow weaning right now, I think, is show. It's show to take pressure off the dollar. It may be they're running out of the ability to manipulate the gold price, and so they want to take pressure off of quantitative easing on the dollar. You know, one of the reasons for the rapid rise in gold was that people said, well, they're just going to inflate the currency away. Well, quantitative easing sort of proved that that's what they were going to do. So if they back off from it, it sort of quiets down the fears about the dollar being overproduced. I just don't think they have a good long-term plan for their economic situation.
Well, that's evident by the police state Gera, absolutely.
Right. And we also don't know whether they may be caught off guard by what happens in the Ukraine. You know, now Kerry, the Secretary of State, is threatening France with sanctions.
Crazy.
Because French companies are going over to see about doing business with the Iranians because it looks like the sanctions are going to be removed. And so Kerry is threatening France. Well, when you start threatening your own NATO allies, you don't know what the result is. We know that the German government is very upset with Washington. It can't get its goal. They're spied on. They don't want to be drug into a war with Russia. They're very uneasy about all this Ukraine business. How does it benefit them to have the Russians?
It's simply deteriorating, and we'll get you back up in a month if you can do it to give us an update. Thank you so much, sir, for the time. All right, we'll be right back with the next hour. Well, the globalists have created a fraudulent economy where they can pick the winners and the losers and can insider trade in every economy, every market, and shut down their competition. It's unbelievable. But fraud destroys overall productivity and wealth, and they can't paper over it forever. They're going to try to paper over it with secret police, black uniforms, armored vehicles, drones. It's not going to work. And I suggest the path of prosperity and renaissance. Let's go to your phone calls ahead of Gerald Celente joining us. I appreciate Jonathan and Georgia holding. Jonathan, you're on the air worldwide. Then Joseph, Reese, and others.
Hey, Alex, how are you doing?
Good, sir. Thank you for calling.
Good. Well, a couple things I wanted to say. One was something that you mentioned earlier about how the older generations just did everything. And I just, my grandfather died 5 years ago from Alzheimer's, and he was one of those guys that you couldn't list on 3 pages of notebook paper all the things that he was a master of. And
yeah, they didn't watch television unless it was once a week to watch a ball game. They did things, and they liked to work.
And work hard and work to be the best. And so, yeah, that's absolutely.
And they enjoyed working.
Enjoyed it so much that they would, and he tried to teach me so many things, and I did take some from what he gave me, but I look at myself now, and I just look at, and then I
yeah, as bad as modern good old boy gun-owning libertarians are, black, white, old, young, I don't care, compared to what our forebears were jellyfish, and then us compared to yuppies and trendies. I mean, we are like our grandfathers to us, to the trendies. You understand that? I mean, the trendies literally do not know what planet they're on.
Alex, it's good to take vaccines and drink fluoridated water. I mean, it's just, you're crazy.
I can laugh at you. It gives me power. Oh, global warming's real, dummy. You've been discredited with just the word discredited. You've been discredited.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, really? You're intellectual giants. They're morons. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, because they wear different colored socks and the handlebar mustache. I guess that says it all. Plus their tattoos that are just so cool. Look at me.
Well, I mean, I'm not against people. They want to have a beard or a mustache or tattoos or whatever, because there's some people that are really cool and our listeners are like that. The point is we all know the type that are big government supporters, and they think they're so cool because they're conforming to what's on television. You're a total chump. Be yourself, you moron. But they've been raised since birth watching TV, so they don't have a self. You understand that? They think it's weird, okay, that we've got testosterone and that we like women and that we like fast cars and we are the weirdos of them. You understand that? They call us gorillas.
You know, well, one thing, a real quick, obviously not a paid plug, but the Nation Iodine is unbelievable. It really does supercharge you. And I'm
it's no joke. That's why we only got 3 products. We have 1 food product, the coffee that's so good at InfoWarsLife.com, but we only have 3 products now in like 6-8 months because we just keep battling and battling and battling to try to get the very best, and it's almost impossible to get totally pure, totally clean, organic, and put out everything we want to. It's just, and so I may just be honest when we come up with stuff and say, this is the cleanest we can find. Anybody that says they're cleaner than us, and I'm not in competition, it's just they're full of it. I mean, it is really hard in this world to bring people stuff that's not contaminated. Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, and then I'll let you get to someone else, but just a modicum of criticism is, every time you bring up the devil or God, and then you always kind of justify it with, well, even if it doesn't exist, and you believe that it exists. I know you do because I've listened to you long enough.
I don't believe it. I know it, buddy.
Well, then, okay, well, then stop.
Oh, here it comes, the crystal vision. Keep my vision to myself.
Well, just stop placating to the people that don't. I mean, because half the stuff you've said over the course of your 18 years, people didn't believe.
No, listen, you're missing what I'm saying, but I think it's important that I quantify it. As we go to Gerald Celente, I'm gonna explain where I stand on the other side. Stay with us. The CIA, it's now been declassified, we already knew this, put out ugly art, ugly music on purpose to screw up the world so people couldn't differentiate good from evil. That was declassified last year. And you can put out whatever ugliness you want, but on average, people resonate with what's beautiful. They wanted us to see no difference between something ugly and something beautiful. That's why Gerald Celente talks about you start by dressing nice, having respect for yourself, turning off your television more, talking to your neighbors, buying local. He's going to cover the waterfront with us on war and the economy and this 1929 chart. The Wall Street Journal's reporting on so much. But I don't do pre-interviews with folks like Gerald Celente. I'm going to ask him in a moment what he wants to cover first. We had a caller earlier. Emma's just spent a few minutes on this and then go to Gerald, the last caller, and he said, look, I got a beef. You talk about how the elite are into the occult, how the elite are into Satanism because it's all about them and dominating others and pure power. But then you say, even if there isn't a devil or a God, humans in this archetype, a.k.a. Joseph Campbell, a.k.a. Carl Jung, the psychology, are manifesting it, and cultures manifest the same tyrannies over and over again. You have the rise of Greece city-states and then decline, same decadence. The rise of the Roman Republic, incredible moral science, honorable people, become corrupt, degenerate again, and collapse. The same cycle. And they always get into the same behavior. Aztecs, Mayans, African tribes, human sacrifice, dominance, serial killer type sadists get in control and set up systems where people submit to them, and the whole world becomes a system based on the likes and dislikes and the palate, the taste of the worst people in society. All that evil men and tyrants need to flourish is that good men and women do nothing. So I am a Christian, raised a Christian, and I believe in the teachings of Christ, and I personally have had spiritual experiences that are private. But I don't put people down who don't believe it or who question it because of the corrupt churches and the whole system. I don't judge them. As bad as the state-run religion is in this country, across the board, not just Christianity, they've infiltrated all the groups, the Muslims, the Hindus, the atheists have kind of become the Democratic type, a government-worshiping group. We've had famous atheists on who actually agree with that, like Stefan Molyneux. He says, no, it's true. They just get rid of God and then worship the state. That's why you say you have God-given rights because that's above the state. So if you don't believe in God, but in the system of God-given rights, you're a humanist. You are on top, not the state. So my issue is the system wants to get rid of the real teachings of Christ. I believe in God. I know it's real, but I don't get mad at Jesse Ventura, who's my friend, who doesn't believe in it. I don't get mad at people. So all I'm saying is, whether you believe in the devil or not, there is human destructive parasitic enslavement systems going into place that we should morally say are wrong. Well, they tell you in psychology there is no right and wrong, there is no morals, but do what we say or you're racist. Turn your guns in or you're, blah, blah, blah. It's all guilting. They just don't want you to have a moral compass that you set so they can set yours for you. That's what I'm saying. So that's the issue. I'm an inclusive broadcast here. And I don't judge people that believe in other things. I believe enough in my thoughts and in what I'm trying to put out that I believe it's going to lead people more to my point of view, but I'm not going to beat them over the head with it. Some of the most corrupt, out-of-control people are these churches and these clergy response teams and these systems. It's all a bunch of Pharisees, just like in Christ's time, up on the hill saying, I pray in public, I'm good, everybody else is bad. That would make me an atheist looking at those people. But I know that God will say, I didn't know you. And you can call it, then we're going to Joel Salente. Martin Luther King talked about the universe bends towards justice. Whatever, there is justice, there is right and wrong. I know you got so much, Gerald, and I appreciate you coming on when you already came on just a few weeks ago, but backed by popular demand, trendsresearch.com, trendsjournal.com, and I want to get into all the latest trends. Things are really moving quick. We appreciate the update. But you just heard this topic I introduced, kind of a curveball here. What is your view on what I just said?
I agree with you 100%. You believe what you believe in. You don't tell anybody else what they should believe in, and you live by it. And that's really all it's about. And the people that proselytize, that's their own trip, and they shouldn't throw it on anybody else. And it's, only speaking for myself, because the motto of the Trends Journal, think for yourself. And my definition of hell is taking that last breath and knowing that you lied to yourself and you weren't the person who you said you were or could have been. And when all of these people talk about, the politicians particularly, what will their legacy be? How will history judge them? History doesn't judge you. You judge yourself. What's your legacy? Ask your soul. Who could care less?
Are you proud of what you've done? Gerald, I know you coined that statement you say when you come on this show. Repeat that again, because I think that is a great, profound description of life and sums up what all honorable men and women believe in, is that I make mistakes in the passion. I'm not perfect. But in the final equation, I really want people to succeed. I want to be good. I want to leave the world a better place than I came in. Because of my ancestors, so many of them were so honorable. It's about your family name. It's about class. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Every morning I meditate, and it's try to clear my mind. I want to keep the movie playing all the time, so I try to quiet it. And something I got into probably within the last year, the guys have been up here to the Trends Research Institute, and I have a wall of the ancestors. My grandparents, my great-grandmother, my parents, aunts and uncles. And I'm looking at it one day, and I said to myself, all I am are their DNA. I didn't get here on my own. I just didn't pop out of there. It's all of this DNA. So I've got into the custom of every day and continually thinking throughout the day of thanking them for all that they've given me and all that they've taught me. Because all I am, as I see it, again, not speaking for anyone, is parts of them and a respect for the elders. For all I remember my father, may his soul rest in peace, I'd be complaining about something. And he said, you're always bitching and moaning about something. He said, I'm going to tell you something. I do 100 times more for you than my dad did for me. And it was true. And they came here as immigrants. They lost everything. They were upstate New York. They came as farmers, and they got wiped out in floods. And, they they had to separate the kids and then grow up with aunts and uncles, you know. So I appreciate, and now as I become an adult, I understand more and more what they did give me. And as you mentioned, I'm not close to the guy that I was when I was in my, you know, growing up. Yeah, I look back at the things that I did. Oh, my God, I did that, you know. So to me, it's about leaving this life on a high note. And the high note is simply being true to yourself. You know the truth within. Everybody does. Everybody knows it. You could BS all you want. Man, when the lights go out and if you have time to think of that last thought, you're going to know what truth or lies are.
And that's it. And it's an inside job to change the world and fix it. We've got to change it one person at a time. And we've got to have respect for ourselves, as you've said, Gerald. Finish up with talking about having respect for yourself. And then I want to come back and get into all the war news and economic news with you.
Well, you know, it's dignity and respect takes a lot of levels to it. You know, I go out, every time I go out, you know, I look around and I can't believe what the people have come to look like. And it's a reflection on you know, who they are and what they become, what they eat, what they think, what they watch. But it really goes much deeper than that, as I think about it. And again, this is only the way I see it. It's about dignity, courage, and self-respect. Because when you have those elements, you don't take anybody else's baloney. You don't, if you look up to your political leader, as I see it, you're looking down to yourself. So why would anybody want to do that? So, yeah, as you know, it's like the headlines. All of a sudden, this is big news. This is today's New York Times. The world's going to crap, right? We got all these problems going on. Front page story. Before coming out, a hard time coming up. And this is about this Michael Sam who announced that he's gay. What the hell do I care? The gays have been out of the closet now for how long? I got loads of gay friends. Who cares? And then I hear Michelle Obama say that this should be an inspiration to us. Hey, man, that's his trip. I don't care who he's with, who's doing what to who. That's not my business. I don't care. And number two, it's not an inspiration for me. It's his trip. And number three, Michelle, or do I have to call her Her Highness?
Oh, I'm sick of them making her a movie star and all these other politicians and Hillary. Like you said, politics is show business for ugly people. I'm sick of them.
Well, not only that, I say Her Highness because we heard Obama say basically it's good to be king. You know, I could do anything that I want. I saw it on your website. And by the way, great article by Kurt Nemo on what's going on in Ukraine, and I'd like to talk about that later. But when I say, you know, these people, then the hypocrisy after her making all the news about how great this is, and again, you do it.
Oh, I agree. I mean, is Obama auditioning for a Mel Brooks movie to say it's good for being king, and they're like catapulting people?
Yeah, now the thing is, in 2008, he said he was against gay marriages. How's that for hypocrisy?
It's all just politics. It's a bunch of people that have no rudder. They don't stand for anything. And more in my life, even I disagree with somebody, if they're consistent, I admire it. Because, I mean, you got to have consistency. We'll be right back with Gerald Celente to get into all this and more. Ukraine, the economy, stay with us. Gerald Celente is our guest. We'll take some of your phone calls all over the map for him coming up. 800-259-9231. Please address your questions to Gerald. 800-259-9231. Gerald, going back to you in the short segment, long segment coming up. Obviously, the craziness is getting out of control. And I want to get into Ukraine, the economy, all of it. But stuff's so crazy now, I can't even believe it. And if I'm becoming almost passé on so many fronts, but then no one gets in trouble. The fake bin Laden raids, Cy Hirsch exposes it. The stock market rigged for insiders, everything rigged. The government funding Al-Qaeda, the scams, the TSA, whistleblowers, that it's all a fraud. They're making fun of everybody's genitals, ripping diapers off cancer patients. I mean, this is like we've let crazy people run things. This happens in history. How mad will we get before something changes? I mean, will it be Caligula marrying his horse, Nero, you know, dressing up like a vampire, eating kids on the White House lawn? I mean, how far is this going to go before it implodes?
You know, I don't know. And I'm wondering where the people are. How come they're not standing up and speaking out? And I just keep thinking, you know, and people say to me, well, you know, we've been dumbed down. Yeah, fine, we've been dumbed down, but, you know, look what happened over there in World War II. I mean, the Germans weren't dumbed down. In the 1930s, they were at the height of Western civilization, culturally, philosophically.
Exactly. The greatest pinnacle to that time was Germany. You're right.
Yeah. So it's not a dumbing down process. It's something greater than that. And I don't know what it is, but I can see where this is going. You know, look what they did with this Olympics. I mean, here, you know what this is?
No.
It's a toothpaste bar.
Oh, yeah. It's a
You never saw one before?
Oh.
Yes. Can you imagine they made that crap up? There's toothpaste bombs?
They're creating total mental illness, where everyone's scared of everything.
Exactly. And what they did is the Americans said, if you get on their planes going to Sochi, watch out for them toothpaste bombs. And all the major media repeated it. And you're talking about sick people? Only a psychotic person could make up something like a toothpaste bomb.
Well, statistically, it's more dangerous to drive to work, even if terror attacks are real. We stop being cowards. Americans never, I'm going to give up all my rights because somebody might kill somebody sometime. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I know. But but to go back onto your question, they come out with the most ludicrous crap, and people believe it. Now, when they're going to go out with Tampax missiles next, I mean, anything, they'll make it up. And the people keep buying it. So I don't know what's going on and why. And it goes back to the beginning of what we're talking about. Courage, dignity, and respect. And until people get, and it's the products that you sell, everything that you have that you're offering to the people are going to help them physically, emotionally, and mentally. And those are the ways to me, you have to build yourself, because when you do, you see right through this stuff. Who could believe this? Who could believe what they're telling us? And it's one lie after.
Well, it's like you said about Obama. We've got that clip where 2 days ago with the French president, knowing the cameras were on him, saying, I can do whatever I want as president. You know, it's good to be king. He joins Mel Brooks. Here it is.
Sorry, we're breaking protocol here. That's all right. That's the good thing about being president. I can do whatever I want.
Obviously, Gerald, the establishment wants to set the precedent where we have a unitary executive. What do you make of all the power grabbing we're seeing?
Well, you've heard me say this when the panic of '08 began. It's the merger of state and corporate powers. It's called fascism. And if anybody doesn't believe it, look at the way they treat us. Again, we're going to be talking about what's going on in Ukraine later. But all of these people complaining that, they bug the phones over there. Look what they're doing to us. They're listening to everything that we're doing. They're watching us. I don't need some cat in a black robe with a bad attitude calling himself judge to interpret the Fourth Amendment for me.
How dare them bug the U.S. ambassador who's trying to overthrow their country? I mean, it's incredible. There's total spying. You're supposed to spy on foreign agents in your country. You're not supposed to spy on the general public. Go ahead.
No, and then when you read the comments coming from other people in the EU complaining about it, and they say things like, how dare that they spy on high-level diplomats. Yeah, you don't spy on them, just spy on us. We're just the stupid people.
Well, stay there. I want to go to Ukraine. What else do you want to cover when we come back? I'm going to give you the floor, Gerald Celente.
Oh, the economy. Yellen.
Yellen and other trends and where you see it going, and then some phone calls. We'll be right back with Gerald Celente, trendsresearch.com, trendsjournal.com. Our sites are prisonplanet.com and infowars.com. Follow us on Twitter at RealAlexJones. But this just broke at Infowars.com right now and PrisonPlanet.com, our mirror backup site. J.P. Morgan executive becomes fifth banker to die in last 2 weeks. Now, by the way, that's top bankers. I was doing some math last week on this, searching. I found like 20 bankers in the EU, England, and the U.S. that are very mysteriously falling into the water, being found dead in parking lots, shooting themselves in the heads, jumping off high-rises. Some fear spate of deaths linked to imminent financial crisis. This is very suspicious because these are all like super high level, but still comptrollers above the highest level. Looks to me like they're getting rid of where the bodies are buried ahead of something. And, of course, the criminal investigations of J.P. Morgan and the fines they and others have been paying their chicken feed. Gerald, you've always got your ear to the ground. You're a big consultant to Washington chemical companies, you name it. I know you've been following this. How does this tie into everything? What does your nose tell you is going on here?
Well, when you look at the real numbers, you've had just in January, you had an outflow of probably about $12 billion out of the, or much more, out of the emerging markets. I mean, probably $1 trillion.
Yeah, that's what's happening in Turkey, all over the place.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in Kazakhstan yesterday, they just devalued the currency by 20%. And you don't have to be a trend forecaster or a mathematician or an economist to figure this out.
Quantify that. There's a race to devalue worldwide.
Yeah, what happens is that all of the stimulus pushed a lot of hot money into these emerging markets. It's called a carry trade. You borrow it real cheap, you bring it to another place where you're going to get a lot more for it. It's as simple as that. Now with the tapering, that money's flowing out. But when the money flowed in, it built the economies of places like Turkey, like Brazil, like South Africa. It kept pumping up all of India. So now, as the money flows out, what they're trying to do, because their currencies are crashing, is they're raising interest rates to protect their currency. Brilliant. Now, let me get this straight. Your economy's going down. It's getting worse. Your currency's being devalued. And to save that currency, now you're going to raise interest rates to make it even more expensive to borrow. Brilliant. That'll really help the economy go way down, because that's what's happening. So now, as I mentioned, they're either devaluing or raising their interest rates. The net result is the same. Recessions turn into depressions. Now, going back to the biggest story, we just saw the dog and pony show yesterday on, you can't call her Fed chairwoman, she doesn't like that, Fed Chair Yellen at the House meeting.
That's good. Say it how she says to do it, or you're bad. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we'd call it in Italian, faccia brute, but we won't say that. But hey, I could call you that. But anyway, she went on, let me set the scene. The markets are crashing a week and a half ago, all over. The Dow, all over the world, the Asian markets, the DAX in Europe, all of them are going way, way down. Every day, every day, every day. Everyone's waiting for Friday. Now, this is a fact. Everyone was waiting for Friday to see what the job numbers would be. So the job numbers come out. The consensus on Wall Street, we're going to have 189,000 new jobs. And they got this guy over there, this shill that they're always quoting in all the newspapers everywhere, this Mark Zandi. He was up to 170,000. He comes in, the numbers come in, they're 113,000. The estimate on the street's 189,000. Zandi said when the December numbers came out at 74,000, and anybody could look it up. You could Google it up on CNBC back in December. Numbers come back. These numbers, no, they're wrong. They're wrong. They're going to be readjusted. I pay no attention. They ask them, how much is the December number going to be pushed up? Oh, 200K. Okay, 200,000. So now, remember, going back to last Friday, now they readjust the December numbers. December numbers come out, they readjust them. It went from 74,000 to 75,000. Now, you look at the market, boom. When the numbers came out at 8:30, the expectations were for the market, the pre-market opening, to be down. The market opens up, and on the good news of lousy job numbers, the market pumps up and follows through a little bit on Monday, And then Yellen comes out, yelling bloody murder, and she says that they're going to keep doing the tapering, but if things get bad, there'll be some quantitative easing. The markets shoot up more. On what? Not on the fundamentals, because here's the big lie, or I should say cover-up, that the Fed chair said. She makes a point of saying how great the number dropped from the high unemployment rate of over 10% down now to approaching 6.5. What she failed to acknowledge in all of this BS that no one called her out on was, hey, Miss Fed Chair, the reason the number went so low is because of all those people that what they do now in the USSA is once you're unemployed, once you're no longer getting benefits, once you can't find a job, you're not counted as unemployed anymore. That's why the number went down. So now, today, the markets are down, what, about 30 points as we're speaking, 36 points. There's nothing to drive the markets up. There's only pressure to drive them down. Now let's look at gold. Since the beginning of the year, gold has been steadily increasing all of the time, and now it's approaching the 1,300 mark. Now, I want to make this clear. You made it real clear when you said the markets were rigged. And what I'm leading up to is that we know the Forex market is rigged. That's the market which trades currencies. I'm not making it up. It's a fact. At the point of, by the way, they're trading each day $5.3 trillion.
Well, look at LIBOR. It just goes on and on.
LIBOR now, here's some of that guy, Jim Cramer, that's always on CNBC. This was reported on Yahoo yesterday. Here's the headline, so everyone knows that I'm not making it up. Jim Cramer, yes, the market is rigged. Yes, the market is rigged. There's no doubt about it. So when I say gold is going up and the market is rigged, it is not in the best interests of the central banks that are pumping out this cheap dough to see gold prices go up. At the same time, if you go to People's Daily yesterday out of China, the report is that gold consumption in China from 2012 to 2013 increased 41%. So the rig market, the paper market that the Goldman Sachs gang, the Merrill Lynch mob, the Deutsche Bank bandits keep rigging, that's very different from the real gold
And it
market.
shows the false reality. We talked about this years ago, how they use naked shorts, all of it. They won't give Germany their gold. They trade gold in the market they don't have. India, China, they're all buying at record levels. You can't buy physical gold for what they claim spot is. The mints are running out. And meanwhile, I get emails and see comments going, thought gold was a good investment. Well, I'll tell people buy it at 270, and it went up to almost 2,000. And, you know, at 1,200, 1,300, whatever. I haven't sold one gold coin I bought, one silver coin I bought, because I know it's all a fraud. And regardless, it's my emergency backup. But the issue is, it is rigged on every front. And when gold shot up, as you know, a few weeks ago, Gerald, suddenly the dollar started going down. But it's the seesaw, but it can't go on. It can't go on forever. And so it's just so frustrating to watch them do this.
Again, this is Jim Cramer. This is a guy that's on CNBC, you know, weekdays, every night, and on their shows, saying that market is rigged.
Well, it's like people saying to you, Gerald, nothing ever collapsed. You were wrong. When by every real metric, they're rigging all the jobless numbers, the unemployment numbers. We're in a depression in most sectors of the economy. It's worldwide. They got like 30, 40, 50% unemployment in areas of Europe. I mean, they're doing 100% taxes in France to pay the bills. The world is going over the edge. There's riots worldwide, food riots, inflation worldwide. And they're going, no, none of that's happening. There was no collapse. Well, we're just like collapsing down to different levels and different strata towards the bottom, but undoubtedly it's happening. And then people say, Alex, where's the martial law? Well, naked body scanners, checkpoints, NSA spying, arresting people that demonstrate, Obama saying he's above the law, he's good at killing people, no-bid contracts, funding al-Qaeda. I mean, we are in a fascist system by degree, and people keep saying, well, nobody's kicked my door down. No, they just made you go from 40 hours to 30 hours under Obamacare, and you're going bankrupt. I mean, they just don't get it. That we're trying to hold back the takeover, and we've been somewhat successful, and we're here trying to hold the gate up, and they're going, there's no enemy behind that gate, as you know, arrows shoot over the parapet at us.
Again, you know, it's what we have right now, to me, is very reminiscent of prior to World War I. You have a lot of inept, incompetent sociopaths and psychopaths, whether they're in government or the military, that are leading the people to destruction over nothing. And, you know, going back to the jobs. Here, Home Depot plans 80,000 new hirees. Amazon, 2,500 new workers. Okay, Home Depot, 80,000, right? Once upon a time, in America, there were these things called hardware stores, and you could own one. You had one on your block, in your neighborhood, in your village, in your town. If you lived in a city, they were all over the place, owned by individuals. Now it's controlled by the multinational. 80,000 slave-landia jobs. Oh, wow.
But it's worse than that, as you know. They cut most people from 40 to 20 hours, not just 30, and then they went out and hired other people, so it's all part-time like Walmart now, because they said we want to keep our workers at the level to get welfare to supplement their job here. Walmart's on record, so that's not 80,000 new jobs.
Exactly. And then you have Amazon, so all you young boys and girls out there that want to get a college degree, a BA or a BS, you could get one in packing and shipping, because those are the kind of jobs.
Except they're putting robots in now to replace them.
Now, this is from CNBC today, just to show you how far out of touch everybody is. This is the headline. Luxury CEO, the poor should stop whining. Now, this is from Bud Kohnheim, who is the head of Nicole Miller, which is a luxury fashion product. They sell luxury fashion shop. He said, we've got a country that the poverty level is wealth in 99% of the rest of the world. So we're talking about woe is me, woe is us, woe is this. The guy that's making, oh my God, he's making $35,000 a year. Why don't we try that out in India or some countries we can't even name? China, any place. The guy is wealthy. That's how out of touch they are.
Yeah, their new argument is, but the cost of living here is a lot more, 10, 20, 30 times what it is in Africa or India.
This is a guy that's...
No, that's a new thing. I saw an article last week in AP. The new rich make $4 a day. The new middle class. Gerald, in fact, that's my next piece, and I don't mean to do this. It's horrible, but I'm skipping the network break because I promised to go to calls, but I've got to play this for you because I want you to hear this Leanne McAdoo report from InfoWars Nightly News. And this aired last night, or actually, I guess, on Tuesday night. No, it was on Monday night. And this is the new austerity. At Whole Foods, they have the magazines. Everywhere it's like, be a hobo, be poor, don't have a job, don't take a bath. Live in a garbage can. You've got the Agenda 21 professor, that's his department at UT, the learned helplessness, artificial scarcity thing, saying we all need to learn to live in 200-square-foot apartments so you can pay more in taxes to the political class. That's their plan, is make us so poor so they get more. Obama tells Africans you can't have air conditioning or a car ever, but he's, got a fleet of jets. It's literally their plan to make us poor and controlled, and she went out to do a report on this. So you talk about raise the quality, demand more quality? No, this is about, lower quality is good, but only for us. Talk about a mind game. Here is her report. I want to get your take on it, Gerald, then phone calls.
Talk about trashing the American dream. A Texas professor is going to be living inside of a dumpster for the next year. Dr. Jeff Wilson moved into his new digs on Tuesday in an experiment designed to show students and the world that humans can live on a smaller scale and lessen our environmental footprint. Outfitting the tiny space is step one in this trash can challenge, and the goal is to design the dumpster to be as energy efficient as possible with solar panels and an energy-producing toilet. Wilson jokes he's part of the 1%, saying his space is 1% the living space of the average American home, using just 1% the water, energy, and waste. Professor Dumpster, as he's lovingly referred to by his students, says the idea here is to ultimately show one can have a pretty good life in a dumpster. Oh, and the dumpster diving professor says that he's going to be transforming his trashy home into a capsule hotel by the end of the year. Much like the kind being called home in Japan. Built for salarymen who missed the last train home, tiny capsule hotels are now the homes of last resort for Japan's unemployed. Looking more like a stack of washing machines, they're 6.5-foot by 5-foot rooms that contain a bed, a TV, and a pair of coffins. But it seems the professor is just preparing the community for the coming tiny apartments that cities are toying with as an answer to overcrowding and the need for affordable housing. Micro units, apartments of 500 square feet or less, might be Austin's next big building trend.
And that's because they restrict all the other building.
What I'm seeing here is that for those of us who can't afford it, the answer is to just shove us into tiny little boxes like a can of sardines and then just culturally normalize it so we don't realize that we're actually being caged. Recent studies show that living in tiny spaces can actually be sizably hazardous to your health. According to Dal Kopek, Director of Design for Human Health at Boston Architectural College, the space-saving trend of tiny apartments can lead to increased claustrophobia, domestic abuse, and alcoholism. On top of that, researchers believe that children need bigger spaces to flourish. They say children raised in confined spaces can end up becoming withdrawn and have trouble studying and concentrating.
They just need video
Professor
games.
Wilson's dumpster has the stench of Agenda 21 all over it. That's the globalist plan for the 21st century.
It's not what is Agenda 21, it's almost what isn't. It is the blueprint, it is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all plants, all minerals, all construction, all animals, all means of production, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. It is a completely comprehensive plan, it's global, and it's implemented locally.
This map, entitled The Simulated Reserve and Corridor System to Protect Biodiversity, illustrates how the UN's Agenda 21 plan would work in the United States. Under this takeover, all personal property rights would cease to exist. The majority of the map is red zoned, mandated for little to no human use. Yellow zones are buffer zones for highly regulated use. Only in the scant green areas is normal human use allowed. The tiny black dots are the dense megacities where transportation will be tightly controlled, freedom will be restricted, and people will be packed in like sardines living in tiny units no bigger than a jail cell. Wake up, America. Under Agenda 21, in the name of sustainability, we are building our own prisons for the greater good.
All right, that's Leanne McAdoo's excellent report. And again, in their own documents that we've covered here, it's not that it's affordable to have something small and lowering standards. It's they're going to raise taxes to where you only get like 5% of your money. Then you go to these big things owned by Bloomberg and others who's pushing it, and you pay $10,000 a month for a 200-square-foot coffin. I mean, this is diabolical. Gerald Celente, you talk about raising the quality. 50 years ago, McDonald's started putting signs up saying thank you, as if you were supposed to throw away your own trash. And then now everywhere's dirty. No one picks up the trash, not just McDonald's, anywhere. And it's about training us to be animals. Gerald Celente.
Well, that was a great report, and the message is really terrible. I love these guys, Professor. You know, get off your trip, Jack, Professor.
He's at Houston Television.
One of these guys that never works a day in his life and has a tenured professor.
But he has a bow tie, and he's going to tell us what to do, though. By the way, it turned out we went down and looked. He doesn't even live in it. It's all a big joke, and he admitted, I don't really stay there. So he's not even living in the dumpster to tell us how great it is. He goes and lives at his house.
Yeah, again, you know, these professors, you know, profess what? And again, they could be total jerks, which a lot of them are, because just to make this clear, if the education system was working in this country, particularly for what people are paying for it, you think we'd be in the problems that we are. So you get a clown like this guy, again, who's never worked a day in his life and only shoots his mouth off and tells everybody what to do, what to think, and to give them money so he could never get fired because he's protected.
Well, no, that's how you're going to get more money to pay his job, and the $200,000 degree is to live in a coffin while he lives in a house.
Right. So, again, when you go back to what I just read, that story that broke on Bloomberg today about this guy from Nicole Miller saying that if you're making $35,000 a year, stop complaining. You could be living in China, and if you were making that kind of money, you'd be rich. This guy, you know, this guy should be brought up for some mental...
Oh, yeah, if you want prosperity, you're evil. It's so sexy to be poor, except for the elite are all in red carpets and private jets. Let's talk to Reese in Texas. He has a question for Gerald Celente. Reese, thanks for holding. Go ahead, you're on the air with the Trends Forecaster.
Yes, sir. I had a question about why our country pushes the petrodollar so much.
Well, because that keeps the dollar in charge, Gerald.
Yeah, that was a deal made by Kissinger back in the 70s when they took us off the gold standard. And that was the deal that was made. So that's why they do it with the petrodollar. That bailed out the United States.
And I had one more question for you. Is there a way to get rid of debt that someone basically ripped you off? Like, basically, I recently went to Full Sail Online, and they basically stole $8,000 from me to take core classes that were completely useless.
Yeah,
and they now charge me 34.57% in interest.
Well, they're trying to pass laws to make you pay back student loans, but that's illegal under our Constitution. You can't have indentured servitude or debtor prisons, Gerald.
We don't have any Constitution anymore. What are you talking about?
No, they brought back debtor prisons in Illinois.
Yeah, it is a debtor's prison. I mean, who are these kids? It's taking them 20 years to pay off their college?
America is a debtor's prison now.
That's what I mean. You know, so there's no Constitution anymore. And you know, I want to mention this, too, about the game being rigged. And so I'm not making this up, or you're not making it up. This is from the Wall Street Journal last Friday. Speed traders get an edge. So that shows you how these people buy information and they get like they're trading in nanoseconds to beat everybody else. And the language is very, very Orwellian. High-frequency traders have been paying to get direct access to market-moving news releases, a practice that can give firms the ability to trade fractions of a second ahead of less, here we go, fleet-footed investors. Less feet-footed investors means you suckers that think that you're getting into the game and playing it. Now, it even gets worse. That's Friday. Today, the article is traders with need for speed turn to laser beams. That's how ridiculous this is, trading in the markets. And then when you put the whole package together, who owns the companies? Well, Heinz, they were bought out by Buffett and that Brazilian group. And then you keep going down the list. All the companies in America, the big ones, many of them, aren't owned by the people or the companies or the stockholders. They're owned by private equity groups, hedge funds. It's a multinational takeover.
They use derivative garbage money to buy it all. Gerald, I want to come back in 5 more minutes. I know you got to go. 5 minutes of overdrive. Gerald Celente's Trends Journal. I want to show it on screen for TV viewers right now. A global wake-up call. 10 powerful transformational trends in 2014. I got one stock market question from Jeremy, and then I want to get into those trends quickly, some of the big trends. Stay with us. Infowars.com. TrendsJournal.com is his site. Nightly news tonight, 7 o'clock Central. All right, we've got this little dessert here at the end. I'll go to Jeremy in FEMA Region 7. What's that, New Mexico or something? He's got a question for Gerald Celente. Go ahead.
Hey, Gerald. It's nice to talk to you on air.
Go ahead. What's your question? Thank you.
I was wondering, like, there was a gentleman that posted a thing about the scary parallel between the market crash of '29 and the current period. And this guy from the Atlantic, he wrote basically an argument saying that, oh, this is nothing to worry about. And Matthew O'Brien, he's basically saying, oh, you can't worry about these parallels because you got to worry about the double y-axis. You know, I mean, is that really, like, is it something, you've been talking about it forever, that they're just propping the whole system up?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we had a guest on, Paul Craig Roberts, earlier. It's the same thing. It's rigged, but it still will end up imploding. Gerald?
Yeah, no, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, so, you know, he's a contributor to the Trends Journal. He knows his stuff. I mean, guy was the assistant treasury secretary under Reagan, and he's one of the, you know, he's a real straight deal, this guy. I mean, he could have sold out like the rest of them, but, you know, he's just interested in the truth, and he has the well-based knowledge of being on the inside and knowing what it is. You have these things called, you know, these ongoing monetary transactions in the ECB in Europe, and in Germany, they had brought a court case that, no, you can't do this. You just can't keep dumping money into the system. And, of course, the court backed off on it, and they're letting it happen. So whether it's in the United States, whether it's in Europe, and, by the way, what people really should start doing now is to pay attention to what's going on in China, because all this is tying together. The Chinese did the same thing the United States did. They just had a different name for it, and with stimulus. And now some 30 to 40% of the Chinese GDP is built upon borrowing money from shadow banking, which what we used to call in the Bronx loan sharks. And like that person that called in that has that dirty deal from the loan shark that's...
And by the way, now they want the post office to have payday loans.
Exactly. So now what's going on in China, interest rates are going up. Interest rates are going to go up across the board. You're seeing in hot residential markets that were building in 2013 in real estate, they're cooling down. Interest rates are going to go up as this tapering goes up. So going back to the 1929 parallel, they're going to do everything they can to keep pumping money into the system. And so they're going to pretend to taper. They're not going to be able to do it because you can see by the data, it's weak at every level. So they're going to juice it again. And when they do, that's when you're going to see the panic hit. Because that's when you're going to start seeing real currency devaluations. That's when you're going to see gold and silver prices skyrocket. Because they've been artificially holding them back, and they only could do it for so long.
But all the paper's going to be worthless, so you won't even want to sell your gold at that time, except for basic items. Gerald Celente, folks can subscribe to your great hard copy journal or sign up for the Trends Alerts, invaluable at trendsresearch.com or trendsjournal.com. Thank you for spending so much time with us. I think it's one of our best interviews ever, my friend.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for what you and all your staff do. You're the first site I look at every day.
Well, God bless you. We try to do the best we can. Great crew. Thank you so much, Gerald Celente. All right, I'm sorry to Brenda and John. Call me back tomorrow, and we'll get to you. Nightly News is tonight, 7 o'clock Central. It's subscriber. It's how you support us. PrisonPlanet.tv with Leanne McAdoo, Jakari Jackson, David Knight, Darren McBreen, and the rest of the amazing crew, Rob Dew, and so many others, like John Bound that also reports, and so many others that make it possible. PrisonPlanet.tv.